Good evening, dear Facebookers. Welcome again on the platform of Rising Ocean, where tonight, once more, we are organizing a debate with our dear friends from abroad and Mauritius. And to co-animate it, I'll have in my company my dear friend and colleague, long-serving militant, George Legallant. So good evening, George.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, and we'll have some wonderful people around us. And it's a context of the School of Ecology, where we had some fruitful discussions these past days on climate crisis. And related to it, today we have a full bench of wonderful ladies militant, and we will talk about ecofeminism in movement, which is today, as we know, the situation of women around the world is not that we can say great. There are challenges, there are improvements, but we are much more must be done. So to discuss on it, we will have a panel of 4 ladies, and I will invite my dear friend George to proceed further.
Thank you, Ashvin. Thank you. Today on our panel, on Rising Ocean panel, we have 4 ladies from different countries. We have Sharon from Zambia, we have Bridgette from South Africa, Babita from Mauritius, and Astrid from Denmark. So I will start with maybe Bridgette from South Africa, because we want you to present yourself and also all your organizations, what you did, your organization done everywhere. So I will invite you to present you and your organization.
No, thank you to the presenter, and thank you for having me, being part of the discussions. My name is Bridgette Nkomana from South Africa. And I'm from the trade union called South African Municipal Workers Union, where we've organized ourselves through a campaign called Back to Work campaign, where we bring permanent employees, which are our members, with the communities that is unemployed and those who are working under precarious work. So we do quite a lot of work in the community as well in conjunction with that. And by right, I'm also an LGBTIQ activist. So that's basically me.
Babita?
Hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me on the panel today. So I'm Mauritian, I'm local, and I'm associated with CARES, the Center for Alternative Research and Studies. Generally give sessions on concepts such as the blue economy and ecofeminism, as I'm invited based on the organization's needs, generally to enlighten the public about those issues.
Astrid?
Hi.
Present yourself and your organization.
My name is Astrid Lund. I'm from Denmark, and I'm here from Global Action, an organization based in Denmark, and we work with inequality and social, environmental, and economic justice. We do this through partnerships and solidarity work with movements and groups around the world. CARES is one of those groups, so I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Sharon Chileshe. I'm from Zambia, and I'm representing the Rural Women's Assembly. So the Rural Women's Assembly is a movement of women in Southern Africa, in different countries, apart from Zambia. And we believe that women are guardians of land, guardians of seed, and guardians of love. We are guardians of land too. So meaning that we can do all of those things on the land. We believe that women must take a lead in protecting the environment as well as fostering food security. So we stand for seed sovereignty and indigenous seed to ensure that nutrition is maintained, but also our environment and our ecosystem is protected. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, dear ladies, for your introduction and talking about your organization. So thank you, George, for the introduction of the ladies. So I will maybe put the first question, a basic question, so that our viewers can really take cognizance of what to develop, so we can develop the theme. It's I will maybe ask my dear friend Babita. So how will you define ecofeminism? What is it?
Ecofeminism involves both a way of thinking. Thank you. So ecofeminism involves developing a mode of thinking whereby we center our debates, we look into, we explore, we investigate women at the center of ecological movements, how they are being prioritized, the needs are being prioritized, how their needs are being addressed, and how these movements engage with the way women are oppressed. But it's also a philosophy which involves several kind of trends of thoughts within academia. So we have different modes of approach to the concept, usually debates around, again, how women and nature are both oppressed by capitalism and neoliberalism as we know it today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this definition?
No, definitely, I fully agree with the definition that's been put by my comrade. And just to add, it's to say that, if you speak to a child and you want that child to understand what it is, the way you need to put it, it needs to be in its most simplistic form so that they grow up understanding what it is. So you can talk from, stories of how grandmothers used to farm and the way they used to do things, because these kids today don't know. Because some of the indigenous plants we no longer get, so that's like something that I would definitely agree.
Yes. Astrid, how global action work with women according to ecofeminism?
I think it's something that are happening through many of the partnerships. Some of them it's happening more directly than others, but I think it also comes down to this understanding of what ecofeminism is. Because I think the way I would say I can talk on behalf of Global Action here, understand it is that ecofeminism deals with the links between the oppression of women and the exploitation of nature. And I think that is something that is present in so many of the struggles around the world. Not always in the same way, because it's very, I think, context-based, what are the struggles and the challenges that are faced. But there are also many universal things, and I think some of the things we have explored here at the school, that is at least some of the things that have struck me, some of the patterns that go across the globe, and doesn't manifest all in the same way. But I think here, this connection of the oppression of women and the exploitation of nature as different systems of oppression under the economic system of capitalism, that then comes to expression in many different ways in the different contexts that we here come from and live in, but also our other comrades that have been here at the camp.
Yes. So, Bridgette, what is your stand? What about you just heard with your three colleagues?
Yes, of course. I do believe that the exclusion of women, first of all, in decision making, is a challenge. I feel that it's the beginning of a number of things. So the oppression begins, the exclusion of the women, and then they're not able to even participate in any form of decision making, yet they are the nurturers, not only in a home, but also of the environment. Remember, they're the ones that go and search for the water. They're the ones that go and search for the food and put it on the table. So at some point, we need women to be able to participate in decision making so that they're able to decide and also just involve themselves in the decisions being made about climate change and decisions being made about what forms of resilience should be made at higher levels. So while they are left at domestic level and they're excluded, their views are very important because oppressing women and disturbing nature means that you're affecting the food system, and that just it has a ripple effect. So I think just to connect to my colleagues' points, I think those are my views.
Thank you for this first round. So Babita, maybe I launch you again. What is the situation of women today? As you perfectly, all of us, you said, ecofeminism is about the relation between we have nature and women. Well, oppression means discrimination, means domestic violence. There's so many things that we can say, no equal opportunity. So how we evolved in 2022, what will you say?
I think I will echo what my friend Astrid just mentioned. We do see that, well, there are disparities across social contexts, across a political context, but we do identify that there are some common patterns as well in the ways in which women remain oppressed by capitalism as an economic system, as you mentioned it, but also the political system. We just have, women leading the revolution at the moment in Iran. So the idea is to identify the common patterns across, specific social and political contexts. And we do notice that no matter where women are, they are oppressed by neoliberalism, they are oppressed by capitalism. So even in the most advanced neoliberal societies, women suffer from the gender pay gap.
So exploitation is still on.
Absolutely. Various different forms.
Things like that.
Yes, the work done within the home sphere is not recognized, it's not valued, we're taken for granted. We have the glass ceiling when it comes to leadership. It's very, very difficult to go up the ladder because of the boys' club culture in the workplace and all kinds of other barriers that are erected just because we are expected to be doing, to be carrying so many burdens, including everything that has to be done at home. On top of that, we have traditional societies, very traditionally patriarchal societies that restrict women's rights.
Bridgette, do women in South Africa face the same difficulty, the same problem as in Zambia, as in Mauritius?
No, of course, definitely. And if I would maybe zoom into the LGBTIQ community, it's the most vulnerable, community at this present moment, where you cannot exercise your human right. You get killed for who you are. As much as South Africa, we enjoy the freedom, the constitution that protects us. Just now, Saturday, Johannesburg was having its gay pride. So in terms of the constitution, it does, embrace, but it's only documented. It's in a document. But when we go out there, when you listen to the gruesome killings of the LGBTIQ community, it's horrific. And to also zoom in, because I'm in a trade union, if you look at when we're fighting wage negotiations, when we see that a job that was preoccupied by a male, now when it's advertised, you see that it's advertised at its lowest notch in terms of salary scale. And these are the constant fights that we need to have. And I'm in the government, local government sector, and the government that's supposed to be upholding law and trying to make change, you can clearly see the disparity, that they're not willing to accommodate and to change that.
Yeah, that's great. And now they are talking about the African continent. It's the same problem in Europe, in Denmark, for example?
I don't think women in Europe and in Denmark are facing exactly the same problems, but I think there are some overlapping themes, obviously, when we look at a system level. But let's also look at specific levels, right? Because that also matters. And I think one that is dominant that we also have talked about at school is the gender pay gap. That is something that is relevant all across the world. What was it the monetary value of, if you look at women's unpaid care labor, is $10 trillion, I think, even
10.8.
10.8.
It's incredibly much, and the gender pay gap is obviously connected to this, that I think there are women that or roles that traditionally women have been carrying in terms of care work and work in the home that are not recognized. That happens very differently, I think, across the globe right now, and Denmark is I feel very fortunate with and lucky and privileged with the rights that I have also as a woman in Denmark, and that I'm very well protected in that sense. But there are still many fights to be had in Denmark as well. We see in a place, this is not in Denmark, but if we take from the global north, that in the US recently women have been fighting for the rights to abortion, for example, the right to your body, the right to determine your own identity yourself, the right to not be the subject of sexual abuse, of harassment, etc., etc. I mean, this is a talk that has been up in Denmark a lot lately, how sexual harassment is happening in so many social and rooms in the workplace, in the all the way up along the educational system, and it's different, obviously, because there is a difference between facing risks to your life and this, and I don't think it's a path from one to the other. I think it's all happening under the same system. So while we need to address these individual things, we also need to have or find things that address the system of oppression that are manifesting in the different locations, I think.
Yes, thank you, Astrid. So, Sharon, one important point that joins all the expose being done by your friends, it's exploitation. You see, how is it in your country? I mean, in terms, is it equal pay for equal value of work? For example, I will just for an input, in Mauritius, lately the government came forward with the Workers' Rights Act, which promoted gender equality, but not only gender equality, but globally about equal pay for equal value of work. So if a man is driving a bus, for example, benefits a lady, you have to get you have to get the same kind of salary. How is it over there?
Well, I think just to connect to their points, basically we are facing similar challenges of great importance. I did mention a lack of women in decision making. If there are no women in decision making, it means that on the interview panel itself, in the first place when getting the job, there's either no women or there's less women. So meaning that the decision to employ a woman in the first place is little or next to nothing. The kind of jobs that women end up getting are not the high-paying jobs. So, and sometimes it's because of the level of education, because of unpaid work. The level of education of women has been lagging slightly behind. But even with those that are educated, same level of education, same level of experience, the pay is still not the same. So you will find that even your employability is still lower than that of a male. And patriarchy does dominate not only the political sphere, but also in the private sector. So it does become harder. You have to work 3 or 4 times as hard to be recognized as somebody who has the experience, somebody who is able to do something of great value for your country, whether in the public sector or in the private sector. Also remember, there's the farmers, there's the vulnerable farmers that are trying also to ensure that they earn an income from farming, and patriarchy does dominate that. So you find that in a home where there's farming activities taking place, you find that the male will make the decision over the funds that they both made. So that is also a challenge. So key for me is policies and laws that need to change, but also the attitude of both men and women towards women in participating in decision making, and just them having a fair treatment, whether or not they are educated or they are not educated. Yeah.
Thank you. So maybe Astrid, I will ask you, can we say that we are still in a world where women are afraid to step up, to go outside, and they still fear for their safety? Can we say that?
That we are in a world where that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Within the world, is it still the case that women have a fear to step up, to take risks because they are not safe?
I think it is very much. Obviously, it's very different for different women, even within countries. I think there are women in Denmark that fear to step up because they have a direct risk to their life in the home situation they are in whatever situation they are in. I think in a similar way, and in many different ways, there are probably women, in Madagascar and in South Africa and in Zambia that are in exactly the same position. And I think now when we're here also to talk about climate change, I think it's very relevant how that puts many, many women around the world in an even more vulnerable and risky position. Either because you depend on the land where you grow your food or where you have, and because of the many risks, environmental risks that this poses to your life. This can, I guess, be connected to your access to food and so on and so forth, but also if I think globally land ownership, when you look at land ownership, it's only 15% or something that is women, I think I read lately. So that this means that in case of destruction of your land, for example, if you don't own a paper to your land or like can actually register it, you are in a way more vulnerable position, both in terms of climate change, but also in terms of other things that happen in your life and in your context with those in your family, for example. So I think in many, many different ways, women around the world are still also end up in positions with risk to their life. Just like many women also doesn't, luckily, but I think it's definitely still relevant to talk about, yeah.
Sometimes people say that we have a lot of troubles in our country. We have a lot of issues, main issue. So why is it important to fight, to struggle for feminism?
Yeah. I think since it's not directed to anyone directly,
Please.
I think the most important thing is to continue to fight. Because if we are not getting up and fighting, the next generation suffers. And I always say that if we don't do anything about the current situation that we are facing now in terms of the environment, in terms of the gentrification that is happening, in terms of when you go on sea today, you find little fish. These kids, the next generation, will find nothing. And they are going to blame us and say that what have we been doing while capital has been taking everything in front of your eyes. So we will be judged in terms of how we do it. And coming back to the issue of being scared, and again, each country to its own, because when you look at South Africa specifically in terms of, the crime stats, it's women.
Yeah.
When you look at gender-based violence, you're looking at women. We are the most vulnerable. And when we look at the protests that are on the streets, women are leading and women are standing up. Yes, there's this huge issue around political killings in South Africa. The minute you start being visible and standing up and being affiliated to any some sort of movement, you officially become a target. And that does not stop women from advocating and continuing fighting. There's many ways to do it, not only through protest, but there's educational ways and methods of doing things. Women are carers. Women are taking care of children in kindergarten. Those kids, there is a way of, women bring up children. So there is some level of education that you're instilling in that child. That is another form of way to say you are an activist and you are fighting.
Babita, will your answer be the same?
Absolutely. I mean, we cannot just say there are other problems and then kind of just made a distinction between those problems and ecofeminism, because at the end of the day, capitalism is enabling those other problems precisely because women are being oppressed as part of systemic violence. So we need, within every problem that we are identifying as more important, we need to identify within that how women, the oppression of women, are actually enabling that problem to, worsen. So at the end of the day, it's to bring in ecofeminism at the core of every single debate and see really the dimensions in, the implications for women and, not only within one setting, but across multiple settings. So right now, as she was talking about, we're talking about the potential extinction of humanity. We're talking about climate emergency, ecological crisis. So we are in a situation that demands that we put emphasis on ecofeminism.
It's not really a choice, right?
Yeah, we don't have a choice. Yes, and just a kind note, can we refuse the ladies term to follow the RWA? We're not ladies, we're sisters.
We're sisters.
So rightfully said.
Yes.
So Sharon, as your friends, your sisters, earlier said, women are caregivers, they have many qualities. But today we can say around the world we have emerging leaders like Angela Merkel in Germany, and we have Jessica Ardern in New Zealand, and today women are pilots or drivers, beyond being mothers, beyond being caregivers. But relating to nature, when we are talking about ecofeminism, do you think that ladies have all, I do believe they do have the qualities. So what more do you think if ladies are given the power, the leadership, enough room in the space to guide the society, how ladies you think can take better care of the future?
Just to connect to my sister's point, the issue and opportunities of women to work together, I think, is one thing that is key. As knowing that we are all part of one movement to actually push for the same things. Because we are nurturers, we have a special relationship that is different from men. We have a special relationship with our environment that is different because we nurture both the environment and other people. So as sisters, working together, forging different forms of partnerships will help our work be more continuous. The few handful of women that are in leadership cannot do it alone. We all have to stand together. And solidarity, and not only that, remember we all have, we're in different environments and different skills. So we all need each other. We all need each other's experiences. We all need each other's stories, which must be shared so that other people may also learn from them and also know and be encouraged by them so that they can continue the fight. I think that this is just not for us. It's for the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that, to be able to foster this relationship and ensure that they do not detach themselves from the environment, because without women, really, what would be of the environment? Look how we share seed. Look how we share. So for us, it's just not sharing recipes for the kitchen. It's about sharing the seed that will continue life. Seed continues life. So for us, that is, for us sisters, it's something that is very important for us. We use the trees for medicine. So that also keeps us in good health. So all of that for us, apart from nutritional food, it's also medicine also. Keeping the forests alive keeps us in better health. So I think working together is what will make it work better, as opposed to just a handful of leaders. And I call it a handful because it's not enough.
Yes.
Women are the larger population in this world, but definitely. How many really are in leadership? How many of us sisters are in leadership? So we need each other, and working together, I think, will create a greater change for climate change now and in the future.
Thank you, Sharon. And I do believe with the kind of sisters you have and other friends, you will not walk alone. I'm saying that on a funny note because she's a Liverpool fan. just to make you smile a bit. So, Bridgette, tell me one thing. Do you believe what's going on today, the climate crisis, we all do, the rise of the ocean, rising temperatures, heat waves, and flash floods, all the issues that are going on, and what is your view about all of it, and what did you really learn, what new things you learned in the School of Ecology, which you just taught in Mauritius?
No, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think, going back home, actually catching up in terms of the news, and to read that in Cape Town, where I come from, there was sort of winds that rooted trees that has been there like forever. hitting cars, destroying homes, and all of these things. And in Johannesburg, there was an issue relating to severe thunderstorm warnings and all of that. And I'm saying to myself, our fellow South Africans need to start behavioral change, because it is us that are causing some of these disasters that are happening in the world. It's the behavior that we have. And we need to start learning even small recycling. You don't need to do big things. We're not looking for people to be astronauts or anything like that overnight. But we are saying in your home, try and teach your child recycling, reusing, so that you can avoid waste going to landfill, which landfill is actually getting full and we're running out of space. So these are some of the things that are currently happening, and people need to learn from those things, even if it's at a small scale. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think I will ask a question to Babita. Do you think enough is doing on this issue in all over the globe?
In relation to the climate crisis?
Yeah.
Of course not. We're going to have, we've seen what the COPs have been, as my dear friend Patrick was mentioning. It's the community of the conference of polluters, the community of polluters. So the level of greenwashing that's happening is just astounding. And Sharon was talking about what we need to do at individual level, but I think we need to go further now, because the climate emergency demands that we resist the system, that we smash the system, we smash patriarchy, and we smash capitalism. So now is the time to rally the people, and socialism is here. Lula came back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Viva Lula.
So it's showing us that we need to get rid of capitalism. Now is the time if we're going to survive.
Sharon, in Zambia, do you think your government is doing things that will move things forward on this issue?
Well, I don't think enough is being done, and there's too much on paper. There's too much on paper that is not being implemented. It's great that we have a Ministry of Green Economy that didn't exist before 2021, but that's...
Maybe he's doing more green money.
So you see, things on paper, we need to see more action. What is the forestry department doing? We have a great forestry department that has some good indigenous trees, but what is it doing? Are we having more trees being planted, or are we having more forests being turned into residential areas? And that's a great worry. So what can we do for the damage done so far to areas that were preserved? What can we do now to change things? So I think the wetlands need more protection. I know there's the capitalist system of wanting to have more residential areas that can be sold at high prices is just not doing us well, because some wetlands, we're losing forests, Forest 27, the famous Forest 27, what that is being demarcated and turned into residential areas until it had been put to a stop. So we need those back. And we need more areas protected. I think that is a key issue. The capitalist system of having too many this, too many that is for money at the expense of things that we can never get back. We can't get forests back. Trees that have been in existence for a long time, and we can't, even if we planted them today, it would take them a long time to grow to the level that they were before. But efforts of reclaiming must begin now, and we must not have things on paper. We must no longer have policies that are not taking action and causing a real change. And we must also change the attitude of the people towards the environment, to protect it and not to just cut it, and to have new forms of energy that can be an alternative, as opposed to the charcoal. There's a great challenge of the use of charcoal in Zambia. So I feel that must be also addressed.
What will be the answer of global action on these questions about moving things forward?
I think we have election right now in Denmark, actually, but the current government, I come from a country now where we have the current government, we will see if they will continue, but where most ambitious climate plans is green fuel for planes, so we can fly more. It is technological solutions, like we need to develop better possibilities for power to X, and we need to capture all of the carbon from the air, not through trees, but with all of these technological fixes. This is not climate action. So, excuse my language, it's bullshit. It is. So no, I don't think we are very far. Thank you. And you know, it makes me furious and angry, because I think in the world right now, I am not the one that is feeling the consequences the most of these actions that the government, this lack of actions from the Danish government. But you know, the way to influence it, it's very difficult, and it's what all of us are trying in each of our contexts. But I think it's not enough, and it's also through this, it's also not making the position better for women, because it's not changing the system that is under which the exploitation of nature and the oppression of women is happening. So, you know, this is all connected, and I think it's very, very unambitious, to be honest.
Bridgette, there's one question I would like to ask you. You know, we have school. A school, a place where we learn things. Do you think we are using school to promote the eco-socialism, the eco-feminist, all this climate change?
Oh, the education system. Our education system really does not offer much room. Because if you look at current study material in high schools, be it primary school, it's so outdated that, you know, new technology has come in. We know how rapid capital, design new methods and new ways of destroying our planet, even worse. South Africa currently, we're facing what you call blackouts. And if the education system was working, we would be talking a different story today. So let me leave it there.
So, Babita, one important thing, to change things, we need to have the tools.
Yes.
And power can be a tool, political power can be a tool. So you can amend laws, you can change laws, change the structure, the way you function, the way the society take decisions, etc. So what will you do if one day you are the prime minister?
Oh God, if only.
If only, what will you do? What will you propose to do?
You sure you want to hear that?
We are sure.
Well, we need to take land back.
I'll vote you.
Thank you so much. We need to take land back. It's unbelievable that land that should belong to our people is now just being peddled away for all kinds of projects that takes away our food security, that doesn't take into account our basic needs. So we can't live in an island in 2022 and be eating fish that has been farmed in Namibia and by a Spanish brand. We are an island that's eating frozen fish, that's importing salt, that's importing sugar. It's unbelievable.
And we are exporting our fish for, I think, 3-4 rupees.
3-4 rupees, oh God. Yeah. Yes, we don't eat even our own tuna. We're getting the one that's being canned in Thailand, meant for Libya. So this kind of absurdity of neoliberalism has to end, right? We need to save our children's lives. We live in an island and our people are dying of cancer on a daily basis. Just at my home now, somebody is suffering badly because we don't have food security, because we don't have access to safe and organic food at a reasonable price. They are killing us. So I will take the land back first thing. Just be careful. Yeah.
I will still vote you. So Astrid, what do you think must be done? What next? So that we can go a step further and change things, move things into the right direction.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think that is also part of my answer. I think this question of land is so incredibly important. I think we need, and that is here, but that is also in Denmark, that we need to produce food for people and not, crops for profit in our land. And that is not what is being done right now. And it needs to be done in a way where we are not taking all the nutrients out of the world and transporting them around the world and not putting anything back to the soil, So I think it's a big question of land. I think there are also some geopolitical things that needs to be done in order to enable all countries to take these steps. And there, I think from the global north-south side, it's a big question of debt cancellation as well, because that is right now a strange system where a lot of money is being pulled out of the global south, while at the same time we want to offer loans so they can buy our windmills from Denmark. This doesn't make sense. It is not. So I think putting a full stop to some of the things that are going on now will take us quite a far away, and then look at the world in terms of ability to contribute where, and then instead of loans, we're talking grants, because obviously Denmark has to contribute to the climate adaptation and the mitigation in countries in the global south, but not through loans, through grants and through solidarity at different levels, at the highest political level, at the movement level. I
think Europe as a whole, it's not grants, should pay back.
I think we are in a huge debt.
Remember, we still owed that 10.8 trillion, eh?
We owed the Kohinoor, we owed the diamonds, we owed everything.
I think the debt is maybe the other way around when we look in terms of what we have taken out of the world. So I think we should be...
Maybe what people must do.
Yeah. Look, we need an entire paradigm shift. We need alternatives. And, we need to not be spectators in the economy. We need that land back. We need those natural resources back. So there is so many things that we need to fight for. Because if you look at government, I can go back to my country. If I speak of the ANC, which is the current ruling party, they have a beautiful freedom charter that is sitting somewhere and gathering dust. And one of the things that it says, which is so fundamental for South Africans, where it's addressing the issue of land. And then when you look at it today, is our government really addressing the issue of land, or is our government freely selling our land and, to foreign investors? We go borrow money at IMF. The country doesn't see where that money goes. So that is why I'm saying we need an alternative, and a robust alternative. And I'm happy what has happened in Brazil, because as the right wing, that is victory for the working class.
The election of
Sharon, in the school, we have seen a lot of countries from Africa, from Europe, they joined together. So how can we make this become a reality, a real reality? That is, all the countries in Africa, in Europe, joined together, like Marx has said, united you. So how can this become a reality?
I think for starters, there must be a revolution, not only for women to now stand up and speak up and take action, and also for them to work together and use a common technique. And that one is agroecology, one main form of food production, agroecology, that not only spares the environment, but it also produces more healthier food and saves us from all forms of diseases. That is one. Another thing in the revolution is to fight for government support towards subsistence farmers, women farmers. That is very important, because women want to use indigenous seed and they need government support, as opposed to government bringing in hybrid seeds or genetically modified seeds. We have got our own indigenous local seeds that we want to use. So for us in the revolution, we want to use our seed. We want farmer rights to reproduce our own local seeds. And we want to use a farming method, agroecology, that will protect the environment and that will produce healthier food. That is key. Also, we want to be decision makers.
Yep.
I will never stop saying that. We want to be decision makers when it comes to climate change financing, when it comes to decisions on land. We want to be decision makers when it comes to whatever involves the ecosystem, whatever involves economic production, and whatever involves food production. We want to be decision makers so that our perspective can continue to nurture the earth and nurture life.
So well put.
Oh, yes.
That's a strong statement. So we have nearly come to the end of our debate. It was a very fruitful debate. Maybe we have maybe 2 minutes, one last round of table. So all of us have experienced COVID, and we know that pandemics will continue because it's related to the destruction of biodiversity, zoonoses, etc. Diseases being transferred from animal to human. So, dear ladies, I do think it must have been very difficult for ladies because many violence have been accelerated during the pandemic. So what be a little advice that you can give the women over there? If you have more lockdowns to face one day, what should be done? What can they do? Babita?
Sorry. Well, the pandemic did kind of show to us really that women again were victims of systemic violence within the home, and it kind of restricted women's possibilities by adding to the burdens within the home sphere. However, we also witnessed how women were the main decision makers when women politicians were leading countries such as Jacinda Ardern that was mentioned earlier. The decisions they made much more of a difference in terms of protecting their people. They were, they took the initiatives that man did not take within the capitalist world, and therefore they demonstrated their care ethic associated with ecofeminism towards their people and were more protective. And therefore that shows to us that the more we have women in decision-making roles, the more we will be able to face the crisis, right? The crisis that might be coming ahead. So we need to bring the change now. Right?
So, Bridgette,
maybe just to add, women needs to start being paid for the work that they do, being home carers, and I think that is fundamental, because during COVID, women were taking care of their men. Women were taking care of their children. Women were cooking at the same time. They're the first to wake up in the morning. They're the last to go to sleep. We are expected to do so much, but all that labor is unpaid. We need to be paid for that labor.
Yes, Sharon?
Yes, I think COVID pandemic just showed us that the capitalist model has failed.
Yes.
Because there's so much we had to let go of in order to survive. So for me, it's to ensure that the alternatives that come from nature are the ones that we need to rely on more. And for that very reason, let's just realign our lives towards depending more on nature than the capitalist model and the capitalist market of demand and supply. That completely failed. Inflation was skyrocketing in most countries. Prices of food was really high. And why? Because our farmers that are subsistence could not get out to sell their produce. So that's how important the subsistence farmer is. As much as the capitalist system pushes forward the commercial farmers, it has completely failed, and we must get back to the drawing board and get back to nature and get back to supporting our indigenous food, our indigenous seed, and our natural systems.
Yeah. Astrid, to end the emission?
I think maybe not exactly in relation to COVID, but I think an important thing we haven't come across now is we might be a panel here of for women today, but I think it's very important that this is a fight that also involves men, that this is not a women's fight. This is all of us. There is a big process of learning and unlearning that involves everyone, however you identify or were born. And I think that is very important. There are also many things that I, as a woman, have to unlearn in terms of what I accept and how I live and how I view others. But I think this is something we all have to engage in together, and it's also a fight that have to be carried by men as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Astrid.
Yeah.
So we definitely support you. As you see, we have
Thank you so much.
debate on ecofeminism.
Yeah.
Despite men, that's a spirit. Support, and here you see, even in numbers, you are more numerous than us. So you won again, ladies won again. Thank you very much for sharing all your ideas, all your experience, but above all your what you think and all the challenges you are facing, but all, I think, the positive vibes. And I do believe that we have hope with sisters like you, with ladies, strong leaders, and we heard all that you said, and I do believe that our viewers also will benefit from all what you said tonight, and it will help for a better world in the coming days, hopefully. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Bridgette. Thank you, Babita. Thank you, Astrid. And also thank you, my dear colleague, Joe, for co-animating this very fruitful debate. It will be
maybe one thing that every viewers, they can share the link to everybody so that this can be shared all the world.
Thank you. Thank you, George. We will thank our technical assist over here, Johan and Shan Angama, who did a very fine job, despite being a late night. And maybe after that, we'll share a cup of coffee together, and we will sing together. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.